Kurt Volker joins us. He's the former US Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations and also former US Permanent Representative to NATO. And he joins me live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the News Hour and to TRT World. Now, as someone who's spent years in the thick of Ukraine-Russia negotiations, what has all this talking achieved? And from your perspective, can it actually achieve anything?
Well, I think what Putin is trying to do is bigger than just Ukraine. He's trying to gain a Western recognition for a Russian sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. He wants to go back to the days of Yalta, where we had divided up Europe between East and West. Since 1975 and the Helsinki Accords, we've had agreements with the Soviet Union and later with Russia about respecting every country's sovereignty, territorial integrity, the right to make its own alliances, non-interference in international affairs, and so on. Putin is now trying to rewrite that, and he is threatening to take it by military force to create a new sphere of influence if it's not given to him as a concession from NATO.
And so do you think there will be an invasion? Has everything gone far enough?
I think it is more likely than not that Russia will, in fact, invade. He's put so many forces out there for so long. He's made these unreasonable demands, which he knew would be rejected. So I think he's looking for that rejection coming in writing later this week as a pretext for going ahead and using military force. I think what he'd like to do is not only keep Crimea, which is already taken, and parts of eastern Ukraine, but connect Crimea to Russia across a land bridge across southeastern Ukraine as well. I think that's a minimum that he's going to try to achieve now. And what we don't know is how far he's willing to go.
And do we know when?
If you look at the troop movements, and your military analyst was excellent on this, by the way, but the troop movements have forces entering Belarus and an announced exercise for February 9th in Belarus. He's also moving ships from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. These are naval landing vessels. They should arrive there by around February 2nd or 3rd. So sometime in this early February time period, maybe as late as mid-February, seems to be the optimal time for him.
And so what is all this talking, going back to my first question, all these negotiations, all these diplomatic talks, is that getting anywhere, given, you know, the troop, the weapon build-up that we're seeing, and that date that you've mentioned, early February, as a possible incursion, invasion, we just don't know?
Well, look, it's always the right thing to try to have a negotiated settlement. And that's why I think it's very valuable for Tony Blinken and others to keep the door open to negotiations, to try to take these extravagant Russian demands and channel them into things that would be acceptable, like nuclear arms control or limitations and transparency on military exercises, such as we used to have, and Russia stopped respecting those agreements. So those would be useful, and I think diplomacy could move in that direction. The problem is that's not what Putin wants. Putin really wants to reestablish a Russian empire on the territory of the former Soviet Union, and he wants the West's recognition for that Russian sphere of influence.
And we've heard Western powers say that they want to sanction Russia if it were to invade. Several guests we've had here on this program have said, you know, from Ukraine itself, saying that the West is naive when they talk to President Putin, and that they should be sanctioning Russia already. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I totally agree with that. Of course, assault is a crime and someone should be arrested for assault, but so is extortion. And that's what Russia is engaging in right now, putting the forces there and threatening to attack if they don't get what they want. There should be sanctions on Russia today as a result of that, with the offer to lift them if Russia stands down its forces, rather than waiting for Russia to invade and then reacting.
And where next exactly from here to February, that date that you've given? Could one of them, you know, de-escalate? We heard Olaf Scholz saying it's up to Russia to undertake visible de-escalation.
Yes, and it is possible. I don't want to rule it out. It's certainly possible that this can be avoided and that there can be a de-escalation. It would require Russia to stand down its forces, pull them back a bit. And there's no reason why they couldn't. I think some of the steps that NATO is taking right now, reinforcing Eastern allies such as the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, and Poland, those are very prudent steps to deter Russia from thinking about threatening the security of NATO allies. If we keep going and keep providing additional security assistance to Ukraine, trainers, equipment, visible support for Ukraine, we may get to a point where it is very obvious to President Putin that it will be too costly to actually launch the invasion. He could still prevail militarily if he wanted to, but the costs keep rising. If he were to conclude that, I think it could de-escalate the crisis. As of now, however, he seems to not believe that he will pay that high cost.
Great to get your analysis, and thank you for your time here on TRT World, Kurt Volker. Appreciate it so much.